Do you own test equipment and want to manage them better? Perhaps you want to look at an outside point of view and get some fresh tips. Perhaps you're a brand new brand and want to set up a new system. Well, stick around and we'll give you a general layout. Hi, Adrian Brown here. Welcome to Opera Aspects, providing you with essential solutions. Every organisation using test equipment needs to have a management system in place to ensure that its assets work and measure correctly. Not just that they are calibrated on time, but that every element of an asset's life, from its purchase through to its calibration intervals, right down to its retirement from use, is covered. Do you need to have a secure process in place? Do you have a secure process in place? Well, in this video I will lay down what I have found to be an ideal process. If you are interested in further information on the subject, I have a book which the link is available in the description below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to know when more videos are uploaded. So, without further ado, let's jump right in.
Welcome to an Opera Aspects video tutorial. The information in today's video can be found in the Concise Calibration and Test Equipment Management Guide. It's available on Amazon and Apple iBook stores as well as many others, and is your guide to setting up calibration and test equipment management. Today we'll be talking about basic management layout. The aim today will be to empower you with a brief concept of best practices in test equipment management. The agenda will be to display an example of test equipment management as a process. So you have the main life of the item, which is the big grey box that is bordered with grey dots, and then you have the first period, which is purchase and procurement period. You then have a second period, which is the in-use period, and then you have the removal and out of use of the item. Now, as you can see, these all flow into one another or over one another, the main part being the red, which is the in-use period. The asset planning is highlighted in red because this really is the most important phase. This is the phase that you have to get right, because if you don't, it can affect every other part of the process. You have to ensure that you've got the right item, you carry out the capability studies and the risk assessments, you ensure that it's being calibrated correctly. You may find that a torque wrench in one process might need to be calibrated once a year, where a torque wrench in another process is calibrated every 3 to 6 months. It depends on the item. You've got to take each item, where it's working, how it's treated, is it carried about, is it used 3 to 4 times a year. Everything depends on this. You then have the asset life, which is weird on the outset because you have a red period with a green item in it, but this is where it's good to go. You've done all your asset planning. You won't find any audits pulling you aside and saying it hasn't been calibrated properly or it hasn't been calibrated at all. So this is where the asset is live, but it's in the most dangerous time because this is where it's being used and can affect the quality of your processes. You then have the retirement phase, which is blue. This is where it goes cold. You've removed it from the process and you've decided to retire it, of which case you have to prove that it's scrapped. You have to have a process that it's been removed, it's been sold, it's not in that process anymore. You have to account for that item. And then you have a fourth period, which is really part of the in-use period, which is where it's recalled and calibration period. And this is where the item is removed temporarily from the process, regular intervals. And this is where the asset planning comes in again, because those intervals have been stipulated correctly. And of course, all this, the 4 boxes above, are controlled through regulation and concise work instructions, which have to be laid down from the beginning. In this green box, you can see it's attached to throughout the asset's life, and actually throughout all 4 periods. You have to establish the organization. You have to have somebody in charge of the calibration management. You have to have somebody in charge of the administration. You have to then have registered keepers that are formally made that they're held accountable to that item. They're responsible for that item, for returning the item for calibration. You then have to have an effective test equipment management asset IT system that is accessible as read-only to a lot of people, who they can check their tools, they can check what tools other people have got. It might work out as a cost-effective system for companies or parts of the company that need to borrow an item. They don't need an item all the time, but they just need it. They can find out who's got one nearby. An effective database is an imperative need of all good organisation and test equipment management. I know a lot of companies use Excel, but I really don't think, even if you keep it in a cloud storage system and have it as read-only, I really don't see this as an effective system. You need to have something that's going to be approved by quality standards. Moving down, you've got effective communication. This could be by poster, it could be by a news box on your website, through newsletters, through lectures. People have to be made aware of the system. They need to know when they're using a piece of test equipment. They have to know when it's in date, how it's identified, how to read it, how to use it. You have to ensure these things are all in place for a good quality process. Then you need to go to a thorough purchase and procurement. As I said, asset planning, it is the golden time to make sure you've clamped down, you've wrestled with this snake and the snake's gone still. Everything's good. Everything's good to move it into its asset lifetime. You have to have a correct calibration and recalibration. As I said, you've got a piece of test equipment that's carried around all day, 24 hours a day. It's used 24 hours a day. It's used in dirty or wet circumstances. That might be calibrated every 6 months, even every 3 months. You've then got an item which is used to tighten a nut up every 2 years on a piece of plant equipment. That again will be only done every year. You might be able to move it to 2 years, but again, you have to take it into a balance. Will the mechanical components inside, will the spring last that long? Will it hold its calibration? All these things have to be taken into account in the asset planning phase. Once you've got it in use, it needs to be clear and understandably identified. It needs clear, understandable identification. Can everybody read it? Can the basic users see that it's probably run out of calibration? Do they know how it's run out of calibration? Do they know how to identify that fact? And of course, right at the end, you need a thorough removal from use. You can't just put it on a desk and then strike it off and then leave it in the process, because somebody could use it and it wouldn't be calibrated. So you need all these items in place to run a thorough test equipment management process. So I hope I've justified everything in this list, and I hope I've given everybody an idea of how important it is to get the item to have a good life from the beginning of the asset planning. And it's also as important to have the asset retired properly. You need to ensure that it's calibrated before you retire it. Then it's set up to go into another process or be scrapped, or you know your process is safe. So I will go through this again just to hammer it home, but this is how a lot of companies work. You have the asset planning phase, which is amber. They've decided it's going to be brought in and it's going to work well. It's going to, everybody's going 3, 2, 1. So I'll just hammer this one point home, because this is an important thing, and in all my experience in test equipment management, this is the thing that's really I've really found to be true. A lot of companies have it so that their asset planning is amber. They've decided to buy it. They've brought it in. It needs calibrating. Everything's good to go. They then bring it into its asset's lifetime. The asset has its life in the process, and then of course they retire it, and everything's great. But everything's not usually great, because as you can see on this compared to the previous slide, asset life is red, and it shouldn't be red, it should be green. And this is where a lot of organizations have it, and this is where their hotspots or their hot topics come up. This is where you have the audit findings, and you find the audit finding is right in the middle of when the item is in the process, when you're using the piece of software or the asset or the tool in the process, and it disturbs the process, and you have to carry out all kinds of risk assessments. Has it affected the process? And so what it should really look like is this. Asset planning, as above in the previous slide, should have been red. It should be the time when the danger should be looked at before it hits the process. It then goes green and is great. Everything is great with it. It's all calibrated properly. It's all tested properly. and then you have its retirement, and this is where the majority of hot topics should occur in a balanced process. So I hope you've enjoyed this small video. It gives you an idea. As I said, this is information taken from the Concise Calibration and Test Equipment Management Guide. It's your guide to setting up calibration and test equipment management. You can see on the slide in front, it has all the relevant subjects and many more to setting up to a small or large organization how to manage your test equipment. We do have other pocket guides coming up, as you can see. We're available on Twitter and Facebook as well, so if you want to pop over and say hello there. My name's Adrian Brown. I'm at operaspects.com. If you want to join the mailing list from there, then that will be great, because we will be able to send you out information on when we bring out more books, more videos. Contact and other details are available in the description below. There's a multitude of ways you can reach out to us. If you want to like the video, then that would be great. If you subscribe and hit the bell, then you'll know when we upload other videos. I hope you have a great day. This is Adrian Brown signing out. Bye-bye now.